poor girl whispers, "He used to share his lunch with me." And the billionaire is frozen and does something unbelievable. William Brooks' mansion had the kind of silence that only money can buy. No neighbors yelling, no cars honking on the street, no life pulsing outside. Just the muffled sound of his own footsteps echoing in corridors too wide for one person. It was Saturday morning, and William was where he always was, in his home office, surrounded by 3 computer screens, a coffee cup that had gone cold an hour ago, and piles of reports that he reviewed with the same grim expression as always. He no longer even noticed the time passing. Work was like that, it swallowed everything, and he let it. The doorbell rang. William glanced at his wristwatch. 9 o'clock. The cleaning lady. He saved the document he was reviewing, rose from the leather chair, and went to the front door. When he opened it, he found Nicole standing there, with her battered canvas bag slung over her shoulder, and a tired expression she tried to hide behind a polite smile. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks." "Good morning." "Come in." Nicole entered, but hesitated. Something was different, William noticed instantly. "Is there a problem?" "No, it's just..." Nicole bit her lip. "I'm sorry for bringing Grace today. The neighbor who looks after her got sick at the last minute. I promise she won't be in the way." It was only then that William noticed. Behind Nicole, half hidden, clinging to the hem of her mother's worn pants, was a small girl, blonde, fine hair tied in a crooked ponytail, huge, light blue eyes, the kind that seemed to see everything. She wore a faded t-shirt with a design he couldn't quite make out, patched denim pants at the knee, and old sneakers that looked like they belonged to another child before her. William frowned for a second, but quickly relaxed. "It's fine. No problem." Nicole let out the breath she was holding, relieved. "Thank you so much. Grace, stay quiet. Okay." "Mommy has to work." The girl nodded her head but said nothing. She just held her faded pink backpack tight against her chest and stood there, planted near the door, as if she didn't want to take up too much space, as if she knew she didn't belong there. William returned to the office. Nicole went to the kitchen with the cleaning supplies. "Hand Grace?" Grace stood still in the wide hallway, looking around as if she had entered a museum. Everything there was huge, clean, silent. So different from the small apartment where she lived with her mother, where the sound of the neighbor's TV leaked through the thin wall and the smell of street food wafted through the window. She took a few steps, slowly, observing the paintings on the walls, the gleaming furniture, the marble floor so smooth it reflected her own face. 15 minutes later, William heard light footsteps. He raised his eyes from the screen and saw the girl standing in the doorway of the office, hands behind her back, quiet, almost holding her breath. "Hi," he said, not quite knowing what to do. "Hi? Do you need something?" Grace shook her head. "So, what do you want?" She shrugged shyly. "My mom said not to make noise, so I'm just looking." William didn't know how to respond. Children were uncharted territory for him now, before maybe, but it had been a long time, a very long time. "Okay," he muttered, going back to typing. Grace remained there, standing still. He tried to ignore her, but it was impossible. He could feel her gaze, curious, intense, sweeping every corner of the room. The books on the high shelves, the stacked files, the massive dark wood desk, the gleaming screens. And then she moved. William looked up again and saw Grace walking slowly toward the credenza next to the window. Up there, nestled among dusty corporate trophies and a pile of papers he never touched, was a framed photograph. Grace stopped in front of it. She stood on her tiptoes, stretching her neck. Then she reached out and touched the frame with her fingertips, slowly, as if it was something sacred. William felt his chest tighten. "Don't touch that," he said, more sharply than he intended. Grace spun around quickly, startled, eyes wide. "Sorry." He took a deep breath, running a hand over his face. "It's fine. Just be careful." but she didn't move away. She kept looking at the photo, fascinated. It was of a boy, 6 years old, smiling at the camera in a Spider-Man t-shirt, messy brown hair, eyes sparkling with joy, cheeks red from running. "I know him," Grace said, very quietly, almost to herself. William froze. His hand stopped mid-motion above the keyboard. "What?" "That boy. I know him." He dropped the mouse. Slowly rose from the chair, as if any sudden movement might break something fragile in the air. "What do you mean, you know him?" Grace pointed to the picture with her small finger. "He went to my school. We were in the same class." William felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. The world became smaller, tighter. He took a step forward. "Samuel?" "Yes." "Samuel," she repeated with a small smile. "He was my friend." His son's name coming from the mouth of this unfamiliar girl did something strange inside him, something he hadn't felt in months, maybe years. A sharp pain, a physical ache of longing, a hole opening up. Grace continued, with that brutal sincerity only children possess, unfiltered, without malice. "He used to share his snack with me." William couldn't speak. He just stood there, staring at her. His hands began to tremble. He shoved one into his pant pocket to hide it. "Shared his snack?" Grace nodded seriously. "I didn't bring a snack every day. My mom works a lot, and sometimes we don't have money to buy one. So Samuel always shared his with me. He was really nice. He gave me half his sandwich, and sometimes the fruit too." William swallowed hard. His throat was constricted, as if someone was squeezing it from the outside. Did he talk about me?" Grace tilted her head, thinking, trying to remember. "He said his dad was really busy, that he worked all day long and that he never had time. He wanted you to play with him more." The sentence hit William like a direct punch to the gut. He took a deep breath, but the air wouldn't go in properly. His chest ached. "Why did he disappear?" Grace asked innocently, her huge eyes fixed on him. "He doesn't come to school anymore." "I kept waiting, but he never came back." William backed away from the desk. He went to the window, turning his back to the girl, because he couldn't look at her anymore. Not like this, not with those questions. He went to live with his mom." "Why?" "We separated." "But you're his dad." "I am." "Then why don't you go see him?" William squeezed his eyes shut. The guilt throbbed. He knew the answer, he always had. He just never wanted to admit it out loud, never wanted to face it. Work, meetings, trips, endless reports, goals after goals. The empire he built brick by brick, sacrificing everything and everyone around him, including Samuel, including the family he didn't even realize he lost until it was gone. He turned back toward Grace, trying to keep his voice steady, controlled. "It's complicated." "But he missed you," she said, with that absolute simplicity that dismantles any defense. William clenched his eyes shut. He tried not to let the emotion leak out, but it was hard, very hard. "How do you know?" "Because he talked about it all the time. He always looked at the door at dismissal time, waiting. I think he wanted you to pick him up, but you never went." Every word was a blade entering slowly. William leaned his hand on the back of the leather chair. His fingers squeezed the material so hard his knuckles turned white. He swallowed hard, but the lump in his throat wouldn't go away. Grace continued, unaware of the damage she was inflicting, not understanding that every sentence destroyed a little more of the man in front of her. One day, he waited for a very long time. Everyone else had left, and he was still sitting there, on the little bench near the gate. The teacher asked if he was okay. He said his dad was going to pick him up, but you didn't come. His mom came in the end. William sat down heavily in the chair. He ran a hand over his face, rubbing his eyes. He took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure, but he was losing it. He was losing control. Were you his friend?" "I was. We sat together at recess. He lent me his colored pencil when mine broke, and he always shared his snack. He was the only one who did that." William closed his eyes again. He imagined Samuel sitting on the school floor, opening his lunchbox, offering half his sandwich to the girl next to him, the generosity that his father never properly taught him, but that the son possessed naturally, effortlessly. "He was very nice," Grace repeated softly, looking at the picture again. "I miss him very much." William couldn't take it anymore. He stood up quickly without looking at her, turning his face away. "I'm sorry, I need to step out for a minute." And he left. Grace was left alone in the office, not quite understanding what had happened. She looked again at Samuel's photo, touched the frame once more with affection, and whispered softly, "Come back soon, Samuel. We miss you." In the hallway, William leaned against the cold wall and took a deep breath. Once, twice, 3 times. His hands wouldn't stop trembling. His chest ached as if someone had plunged a knife in and slowly twisted it. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to hold it in, but he couldn't. The image of Samuel offering half his snack to Grace wouldn't leave his head. The son he abandoned. The son who missed him every day. The son who waited at the school door, looking out at the street, searching for the father's car that never appeared. He had always known he made a mistake. But knowing and feeling are completely different things. Now he felt it, and it hurt more than anything he had ever felt. William ran a hand over his face again, trying to pull himself together, trying to get back to normal. He took another deep breath and returned to the office. Grace wasn't there anymore. She had gone to look for her mother. He sat down in the chair, looked at the 3 computer screens, the open reports, the colorful charts, the emails waiting for a reply, the meetings scheduled for the entire week. None of it mattered. Absolutely none of it. He tried to focus, tried to return to work, return to the routine that always saved him from thinking too much. But Grace's words echoed in his head, one after the other, relentlessly hammering away. He missed you. He wanted you to play with him more. He always looked at the door, waiting. He used to share his snack with me. William ran a hand through his hair, tried to read an email, couldn't, tried to review a contract. The words blurred on the screen. Tried to focus on anything. Nothing worked. He gave up, closed the laptop with a dry snap, got out of the chair, left the office. He needed to be alone. He needed to think. He didn't know what. But one thing he knew, with a painful clarity that cut deep. He couldn't pretend everything was okay anymore, because it wasn't. And maybe it never would be again. Night fell upon the mansion like a weight. William paced back and forth for hours. He tried to work but gave up. He tried to watch something on TV but turned it off after 5 minutes. He tried to eat dinner, but the food wouldn't go down. Grace's words still echoed in his head, one after the other, without stopping. He used to share his snack with me. He missed you. He used to wait at the door. William stopped in the second-floor hallway, looked at the closed door at the end of the corridor, the last door on the left, the one he had avoided for months, Samuel's room. He took a deep breath, his fingers clenched into a fist, took a step, then another, and another. He stopped in front of the door. His hand trembled when he touched the doorknob, cold. He held on tight, took another deep breath, and turned it. The door opened slowly, creaking softly. William stepped inside. The room was dark, only the light from the hallway entered, cutting the floor in half. He fumbled for the switch on the wall until he found it, turned on the light, and everything came back. The room was exactly as Samuel had left it, intact, frozen in time. The twin bed with the Spider-Man comforter, the crumpled pillows, the bedside table with the lamp turned off, the shelf full of children's books and scattered action figures, the round rug in the middle of the room with paint stains that never came out. William took another step inside, closed the door behind him, slowly, as if he was afraid of waking someone. The silence was different there, heavier, denser. He breathed in deeply, and he smelled it. The scent of baby powder was still in the air, faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. But Mixed with the smell of stored clothes and fine dust that had accumulated over the past few months, William closed his eyes. That smell took him straight back. Baths before bed, Samuel laughing in the tub, splashing water everywhere, the wet towels on the floor, the mess he complained about but secretly found amusing. He opened his eyes again, looked around. On the low shelf, next to the bed, was Samuel's favorite red toy, a fire truck with a movable ladder, the paint peeling on the wheels from so much use. William remembered Samuel dragging that truck all over the house, making siren noises, saving imaginary people from fires that only existed in his head. William knelt down, picked up the toy. The plastic was cold. He spun the wheels. They still worked. He put the toy back in its place. He stood up and went to the dresser. On top, carefully folded, were some t-shirts Samuel hadn't taken with him when he left. The blue Batman shirt, the green one with a dinosaur, the plain white one he wore to sleep. William touched the white t-shirt. The fabric was soft. He picked it up, unfolded it, held it with both hands. It was so small, so light. How quickly Samuel had grown. Or maybe William just hadn't paid attention. He put the t-shirt back down, but couldn't fold it neatly. Left it there, crumpled. He walked to the desk near the window, the small chair, the box of colored pencils, the closed sketch pad. William pulled out the chair, sat down, and it groaned, complaining about the weight of an adult. He opened the sketch pad. The first pages were filled with scribbles, stick figures, houses with smoking chimneys, yellow suns with straight rays, flying cars, dinosaurs, superheroes. William turned the pages slowly, looking at each drawing as if for the first time. And then he stopped. In the middle of the pad, a different page, a more careful drawing, colored with attention. Two stick figures, one tall and one small, holding hands, both smiling. Above them, written in clumsy, large letters, "Me and Daddy." William felt his chest tighten. He held the pad tightly. His fingers trembled. He looked at those two simple figures, that drawing made with the pure love of a child, and something inside him broke completely. William squeezed his eyes shut, but it didn't help. The first tear ran hot down his cheek, then another, and another. He tried to stop it, breathed deeply, shaky, trying to control himself, but he couldn't. The crying came low, trapped in his throat, silent, but devastating. He lowered his head, pressed the sketch pad against his chest, and wept. He wept for the absence, for the distance, for the lost time, for the nights he spent working while Samuel slept alone, for the mornings he left too early and didn't give a goodbye kiss, for the weekends he said later, but later never came. He wept because the absence now had weight. It had a smell. It had a shape. It was there, in that empty room, in that stationary toy truck, in that folded t-shirt, in that drawing of two stick figures holding hands. William wiped his face with the back of his hand, took a deep breath, still trembling, looked at the drawing again. Me and Daddy Samuel had drawn that. He had chosen the colors. He had carefully written the letters. He had imagined them together, happy, holding hands, and William. William had let it die. He closed the sketch pad slowly, put it back on the desk, got up from the chair. He stood there in the middle of the room, looking around, seeing everything, feeling everything. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something other than guilt. He felt a desire to change, a desire to fix things, a desire to be different. He didn't know how, didn't know where to start, didn't know if there was still time, but he wanted to try. He had to try. William took a deep breath, turned off the bedroom light, closed the door slowly, but this time he didn't run away. This time he looked at the closed door and made a silent promise. I'm going to fix this. I promise. He turned and went down the stairs. The mansion remained silent, but inside him, something had changed. It was still small, fragile, uncertain, but it was there. And it was the beginning. The following Saturday arrived faster than William expected. He woke up early, but didn't go straight to the office as he usually did. He stayed in the kitchen, sipping his coffee slowly, looking out the window, observing the garden he barely noticed on other days. The week had been strange. He tried to work normally, but his mind wasn't in it. It was somewhere else, in the empty room, in the drawing of two stick figures holding hands, in Grace's words echoing without end. "He used to share his snack with me. He missed you." When the doorbell rang promptly at 9, he was already waiting near the door. William opened it. Nicole was there with the same battered canvas bag over her shoulder, the same tired look trying to hide behind a polite smile that fooled no one. And behind her, clinging to the hem of her mother's pants, was Grace. Blonde, fine hair tied in a ponytail that was already a bit crooked. Huge, light blue eyes, faded pink backpack on her back. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks," Nicole said, with that respectful tone she always used. "Good morning," William replied, and this time he lowered his gaze and looked directly at Grace. "Good morning, Grace." The girl was surprised. Her eyes widened. He knew her name. He remembered. She smiled shyly, hiding half her face behind her backpack. "Good morning." "Come in," William said, opening the door completely and giving them space to pass. Nicole entered, but hesitated again, looking at her daughter with that worried look of a mother who doesn't want to inconvenience anyone. "I'm sorry again for bringing her, Mr. Brooks. The neighbor is still sick." "I tried to find someone else, but you don't need to apologize," William said, and this time his voice was softer, less mechanical. "She can come whenever you need her to." Nicole blinked, genuinely surprised. "Seriously? Seriously?" Grace smiled wider, showing her small teeth, and Nicole let out the breath she had been holding for a while. "Thank you, Mr. Brooks." "Really, thank you so much." William just nodded. Nicole turned and went straight to the kitchen, where she had left the cleaning supplies the week before. Grace stood there, still in the enormous hallway, holding her backpack with both hands, not quite sure what to do. William looked at her. She looked back, curious, waiting. And he did something he hadn't done in a very, very long time. He crouched down, bent his knees and lowered himself to her height, eye to eye. "Are you hungry?" Grace shook her head quickly, but her stomach rumbled softly, betraying her answer. She blushed, embarrassed, and looked down. William smiled faintly, a small but genuine smile. "Come with me." He led Grace to the large and bright kitchen, full of cabinets she had never seen open. He opened the refrigerator and took out a chocolate bar that was stored deep inside. He offered it to her. Grace looked at the chocolate as if it were made of pure gold. "You can have it," William said, holding it out further. She took it slowly with both hands, carefully as if afraid she might ruin it or that he might change his mind. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome." Grace opened the wrapper calmly, being careful not to tear it too much. She took a tiny bite, chewing slowly, savoring every piece. William sat down on the chair next to her, watching in silence. She ate with incredible concentration, making it last, not wanting it to end quickly. "Do you like chocolate?" he asked, breaking the silence. Grace nodded her head, still chewing, her eyes sparkling. "I love it. It's my favorite treat. But we don't buy it much. It's expensive." William felt a pang in his chest, but didn't let it show on his face. "I see." Grace took another bite, savoring it, and then looked at him, curious, tilting her little head to the side. "Are you better now?" William frowned. "Better? Yes. You were sad the other day. When I talked about Samuel, you left quickly." He was quiet for a moment, processing. She had noticed. Of course she had. Children notice everything. He nodded slowly. "I was sad, yes, but everything is fine now." "Do you miss him? Very much?" Then why don't you go see him? Direct. No beating around the bush, unfiltered, as only a child can be. William took a deep breath, searching for the right words. It's hard, Grace. I made a lot of mistakes with him. I was absent. I worked too much. And now I don't know if he will want to see me. If he still cares. Of course he will want to, Grace said, with that absolute certainty of someone who doesn't understand adult complications. You are his dad. Dad is dad. He loves you. William felt his throat tighten again. Do you think so? I don't think so. I know so, she replied, seriously. He always talked about you, always. Every day he loved you very much. The past tense word hurt more than William expected. Loved, as if he no longer loved him, as if it were too late. Grace finished the chocolate, licked her fingers one by one, and sat there swinging her legs on the high chair, looking around the enormous kitchen. My mom works a lot too, she said, suddenly breaking the silence. William looked at her. She does. Very much. She cleans a lot of houses, every day, morning, afternoon, night. She leaves very early, before the sun rises, and comes back late. Sometimes I'm already asleep when she arrives. I barely see her. William felt his heart clench hard. And why does she do all that? So I can study, Grace replied simply, as if it were obvious. She says school is very important, that I need to study hard to have a better life than hers, so I don't have to work so much when I grow up. William remained quiet, just listening, absorbing every word. Sometimes she cries, Grace continued softly, looking at her small hands. She thinks I don't see, but I do. She cries in her room quietly. When she thinks I'm already asleep, I hear her. I think she is very tired. Very, very tired. The girl's voice was so innocent, so honest, so pure that it hurt to listen. Every word was a gentle blade. William swallowed hard, feeling a knot in his throat. Your mom is very strong, Grace, very brave. I know. She is the best mom in the whole world. And you are a very special girl, very much so. Grace smiled, and her smile lit up her whole face, transforming the kitchen into a warmer place. William felt something strange happening inside him. Something he hadn't felt in a very, very long time. A lightness, a calmness, a small but real peace, as if talking to that little girl with huge eyes made him breathe better, breathe properly for the first time in months. He didn't quite understand it, but he felt it. Do you like to draw? He asked, changing the subject before emotion overwhelmed him. Grace nodded excitedly, her eyes sparkling again. I love it. I draw every day, at school, at home, everywhere. I have a notebook just for drawings. Do you want to draw something now? Her eyes almost popped out. Can I? Of course. William stood up and went to a tall cabinet. He opened it, searched, and took out some white sheets of paper he used for printing documents and an old box of colored pencils that was forgotten deep inside, dusty. He didn't even remember where it came from. Maybe it was Samuel's, maybe not. He handed them to Grace. She took them as if she had received a valuable treasure, holding the box carefully. Can I draw anything I want? Anything you want? Grace opened the pencil box slowly, admiring each color. She chose blue first, then red. She thought, switched to yellow, took a sheet of paper, and began. William sat there next to her, watching in silence. She drew, concentrated, her tongue sticking out slightly, her little face serious and furrowed. Every now and then she bit her lower lip, thinking. She chose another color carefully, went back to drawing, taking great care. 10 minutes passed in complete silence. William didn't move. He just watched. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about work. He wasn't thinking about meetings, reports, contracts. He was there, present. Done? Grace announced suddenly, proudly, holding up the sheet of paper. She turned the paper toward William with a huge smile. There were 3 stick figures, holding hands, one tall one in the middle, one smaller one on the left, and another smaller one on the right. All smiling. Above them, 3 hearts carefully drawn, colored red. And underneath, written in large and clumsy but careful letters, "Me, Samuel, and you, William," was utterly speechless. He looked at the drawing, looked at Grace, looked back at the drawing, processing. "It's for you," she said, pushing the paper toward him with both hands. "So you can keep it, so you don't forget that we like you very much." William took the drawing with both hands, slowly, carefully, as if it were the most fragile and precious thing in the whole world. "Thank you, Grace," he said, his voice choked. "Thank you very much." "You're welcome," she replied simply, as if it were no big deal. But it was. It was everything. She smiled again, satisfied, and jumped off the chair. She ran off to the hallway to play, to explore, to draw more. William was left alone in the kitchen, holding the drawing. He looked at the 3 figures, the 3 hearts, me, Samuel, and you. He touched the paper with his fingertips, feeling the texture. He folded it carefully, like someone putting away something sacred, and placed it in his shirt pocket, close to his heart. He got up to go to the office, but stopped midway. Grace was in the hallway, crouched on the cold marble floor, playing with her backpack. She took out an old crumpled notebook from inside, a pencil broken in half, and started drawing again, concentrated, in her own world. That's when William noticed. He really noticed. For the first time, he truly saw her clothes, the faded t-shirt, which had once been pink but was now almost white, with a small hole near the left sleeve. The old denim pants, worn at the knees, patched with a dark blue fabric that didn't even match properly, but which someone, probably Nicole, had sewn carefully to make them last longer. Her socks, threadbare, full of little balls at the heels, so thin that you could see the skin through the fabric. And the sneakers were old, very old, worn out. The canvas torn on the sides, the sole open at the front, coming off gaping like a mouth. And it had been glued with something, probably super glue or some cheap adhesive, but it no longer held. Grace stepped strangely, slightly crooked, being careful, trying to keep the sole from coming completely off and falling apart. William felt a violent punch in his stomach. He looked around, at the enormous mansion, at the expensive imported furniture, at the paintings on the walls that cost fortunes, at the crystal chandeliers, at the polished marble, at the impeccable garden outside, at the imported car in the garage that he barely used. And then he looked back at Grace, a 6-year-old girl, blonde, with light eyes, innocent, pure, in busted sneakers, patched clothes, holey socks, eating chocolate like it was a feast, as if it were a rare gift, because she didn't have it at home. He thought of Samuel, of how much he always had. Toys scattered all over his room, new clothes every month, imported sneakers he didn't even care about, plenty of food always, expensive school, everything. Absolutely everything. And he thought of Grace, who shared her snack with Samuel because she didn't have her own, who saw her mother cry from exhaustion hidden in her room, who wore patched clothes and sneakers that no longer held up and still smiled, still drew, still was happy. William squeezed his eyes shut, took a deep breath, trying to control the wave of emotion rising inside him, and he decided, right then and there, he was going to help, but he was going to do it the right way, without showing off, without humiliating, without turning it into an arrogant act of charity that hurt more than it helped, without making Nicole feel small. He was going to do it with respect, with care, with dignity. He waited for Nicole to appear in the kitchen about 20 minutes later to get more cleaning supplies. She still looked tired, her shoulders slightly slumped, her hair tied in a loose bun, her hands red and rough from so much scrubbing, cleaning, working non-stop. "Nicole," he called softly. She turned, surprised. "Yes, Mr. Brooks. Can I speak with you for a minute?" "Of course." She dried her hands on an old dish towel and stood there, waiting, a little tense, always tense when he called her. William chose his words very carefully. "I noticed that Grace, she is a very special girl." Nicole smiled, and the tiredness on her face disappeared for a second. Pure pride. "She is my treasure. My whole life. It must be difficult, working so much, taking care of her alone, doing everything without help." Nicole looked away, embarrassed, as if she didn't want him to see the raw truth. "I do what I can, Mr. Brooks. She deserves better, much better, but we get by, one day at a time." "You're doing a great job," William said, and the sincerity in his voice was obvious. "She is very polite, very smart, very affectionate. You must be very proud of her." Nicole blinked, genuinely surprised by the compliment. She didn't expect that, never expected it. "I am Mr. Brooks, very—" "She's everything to me." William nodded, took a deep breath and continued. "I wanted to—" He hesitated, searching for the exact words. "I wanted to thank Grace. She talked to me the other day, about Samuel, about a lot of things, and it helped me. It made me think, it made me realize things I was ignoring. It made me want to change." Nicole looked at him, confused, not quite understanding. "Change?" "I was an absent father, Nicole," he confessed, and his voice was low, heavy. "I worked too much. I put the company before everything. I lost my son in the process, lost him completely, and Grace, she made me realize that. She made me see how wrong I was. She made me want to fix things before it's too late." Nicole was quiet, not knowing what to say, processing. "So I wanted to do something for her," William continued firmly, "as a thank you, as gratitude, nothing big, nothing exaggerated, just some things she needs. Basic things." Nicole tensed immediately. Her posture changed. "Mr. Brooks, I don't want charity. Please." "It's not charity," he said quickly, looking her directly in the eyes. "It's gratitude, truly. Grace gave me back something I thought I had lost forever, the desire to be a better father, the desire to try again. Let me do this. Please, for what she did for me." Nicole looked at him. She studied his face, saw the sincerity in his eyes, saw that it wasn't pity. It wasn't the arrogance of a rich man wanting to feel good. It was something else. It was respect. It was genuine gratitude. She took a deep breath, thinking. "Nothing exaggerated," she said, finally. "Nothing exaggerated," William promised. "Seriously, I promise." Nicole nodded, still a little suspicious, but she accepted. "Okay then. Thank you, Nicole." "Truly?" She nodded again and returned to work, silently. William stood there, alone in the enormous kitchen, with Grace's drawing still in his pocket. He touched the folded paper through his shirt. 3 figures, 3 hearts. Me, Samuel and you. And for the first time in a very, very long time, William felt like he was doing the right thing, that he was on the right path, that there was still time. The following Saturday arrived differently. William woke up early but didn't go to the office. He went straight to the closet and retrieved 2 simple brown paper bags he had stored there since Wednesday. He had left the company earlier that day, a rare occurrence, and went to a store in the city center. Nothing fancy, nothing ostentatious, a normal store for normal people. He spent almost an hour choosing, looking at sizes, comparing prices, picking things up, putting them back, picking them up again. The saleswoman offered help 3 times, but he declined. He wanted to choose alone. He wanted it to be right. In the end, he bought the essentials, nothing more, nothing less. Now, at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, he was standing there holding the bags, waiting for the doorbell to ring. When it rang, his heart quickened. He opened the door. Nicole was there, as always, with the battered bag over her shoulder and her tiredness disguised. and Grace beside her, holding her faded pink backpack, her sneakers still busted, the same patched pants. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks," Nicole said. "Good morning," William replied, and looked at Grace. "Good morning, Grace." She smiled, shyly. "Good morning. Come in." They entered. Nicole went straight to the kitchen, but William called out before she disappeared. "Nicole, wait a moment." She stopped, surprised, and turned around. "Yes." William picked up the 2 bags he had left near the door, held them firmly, took a deep breath, and held them out toward her. "This is for Grace." Nicole frowned, confused, looked at the bags, looked at him. "What is it?" "Just a few things. For her. Like I said the other day." Nicole hesitated, took a step forward slowly and took the bags. She put them on the floor, opened the first one, and looked inside. Her eyes widened. Inside was a simple dress, light blue, with a round collar and short sleeves. Nothing extravagant, no brand name, just a nice new dress, the right size. Along with it, a grey hoodie light with a hood. A new pair of sneakers, white with purple accents, 3 pairs of clean, soft socks, and 2 hair bows, one pink and one yellow. Everything simple, everything normal, but everything new. Nicole stood still, looking and unable to speak. Her hands trembled holding the dress. Grace approached, curious, and peeked inside the bag. "What is it, Mom?" Nicole didn't answer. She just looked at her daughter, then back at the contents, and then back at William. "Mr. Brooks, It's for her," he repeated gently, "like I promised. Nothing exaggerated. Just what she needs." Grace took the dress from her mother's hands, slowly touching the fabric as if it was something magical. "Is it for me?" she asked, softly, her huge eyes fixed on William. "It is," he replied, and smiled faintly. "For you." Grace's eyes sparkled. She hugged the dress to her chest, holding it tight, as if it were the most valuable treasure in the whole world. "Mommy, look," she said, turning to Nicole, excited. "It's a dress, a new dress. For me." Nicole blinked quickly, trying to hold back the tears that were already welling up. "I see, sweetie." Grace pulled out the hoodie too, then the sneakers, looking at everything with that pure admiration of a child who never had much. "And there are sneakers, new sneakers. Look, Mum, mine are ripped, but now I have new ones." Her voice was so happy, so genuine, that it hurt to hear. William felt his throat tighten, but controlled himself. He couldn't cry. Not here, not in front of them. Grace dropped everything on the floor, ran to William, and hugged his legs tightly. Thank you so much." He froze for a second, not knowing what to do. Then, slowly, he lowered his hand and touched her head, her fine blonde hair. "You're welcome, Grace." She let go of him, picked up the dress again and looked at it with that huge smile on her face. "It's the best day of my life," she said, simply, and it was like a punch straight to William's chest. He swallowed hard, looked away, took a deep breath, trying not to let the emotion overflow. Nicole was standing still, holding the sneakers, looking at them, and the tears finally escaped. She quickly wiped them with the back of her hand, but it didn't help. More came. "Mr. Brooks, I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice choked. "You don't have to say anything," William replied gently. No one has ever done this for her. For us? She deserves it, Nicole. She deserves a lot." Nicole nodded, unable to speak further. She bent down, picked Grace up, and hugged her daughter tightly, hiding her face in her neck. Grace didn't quite understand why her mother was crying, but she hugged her back, holding tight. William stood there, watching, feeling the weight of that moment, feeling that he had done something right, something small, but important, something that mattered. Half an hour later, Grace was in the guest room trying on the new clothes with her mother's help. William stayed in the living room, waiting, fiddling with his phone without paying attention. When Nicole came back, she was more composed, but her eyes were still red. "Mr. Brooks," she called softly. He looked up. "Yes? May I speak with you for a minute?" "Of course." Nicole entered the room, stood up, nervous, wringing her hands. "I wanted to thank you again. Truly. You have no idea how much this means to us." "I know how much it means," William said, sincerely. "That's why I did it." Nicole took a deep breath. "Grace, she is everything to me. Everything. I work as much as I need to give her the best, but sometimes the best I can manage isn't enough, and that hurts. It hurts deeply." "You're doing more than enough," William said, firmly. "You have an incredible girl, Nicole. Very polite, very smart, very loving. That's because of you. Because of everything you do for her." Nicole smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I was always afraid she would bother you here, that you wouldn't want her around, that you'd ask me not to bring her anymore." William frowned. "Why would you think that?" Because we don't belong in places like this. We don't have money. We have nothing. And I know children bother people. They make noise, they get in the way." "Grace doesn't bother anyone," William said seriously. "In fact," he hesitated, searching for the right words, "talking to her has been good for me." Nicole looked at him, surprised. "Good for you. Very good. She made me think. She made me realize things I was ignoring. She made me remember my son. She made me want to be better." Nicole was quiet, processing that. "I didn't know." "Now you do," he said, and smiled faintly. "So you don't need to be afraid. Grace can come whenever you need her to. Always." Nicole blinked, holding back tears again. "Thank you, Mr. Brooks. From the bottom of my heart. Just call me William," he said, relaxing a little. She hesitated but nodded. "Okay, William." They stood there, silent for a moment. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was something else. It was respect. It was understanding. "Can I ask you something?" William said. "Of course. How do you do it? Work so much." "Take care of her alone. Manage everything." Nicole gave a tired smile. "I don't know, I just do it. One day at a time. I wake up early, work, go back home, take care of her, sleep, and it starts all over again the next day. It must be exhausting. It is, but it's worth it. She is worth every second." William nodded, understanding. "Do you take the bus to get here?" "I do, too. It takes almost an hour, but it's okay, I manage." "And the rent? Can you pay it easily?" Nicole looked away, embarrassed. "I manage. Sometimes it's tight, but I manage. I do some extra side jobs when needed." William stood still, absorbing that, thinking about his own life, the enormous mansion, the imported car, the full bank account, and Nicole taking 2 buses, working non-stop, doing side jobs to pay the rent. "You are very strong, Nicole." She looked at him, surprised. "I don't feel strong. I feel tired." "Both things can be true at the same time." She smiled, genuinely this time. "I guess so." "And you?" Nicole asked after a moment. How do you manage?" "Living alone here in this huge house." William looked around at the expensive furniture, at the paintings, at the empty corridors. "I work," he said, simply. "I work, and when I'm not working, I don't know what to do, so I work more. It must be lonely." "It is," he admitted, and the sincerity in his voice was raw. "Very." Nicole nodded, understanding without needing more words. "I understand. I get lonely too, even with Grace, because she's a child, and I'm an adult, and sometimes the loneliness hits hard." "It does," William agreed. They stood there, exchanging glances, understanding each other in a strange but real way. 2 completely different people, from completely different worlds, but who understood each other's pain. It wasn't romance. It wasn't attraction. It was something else. It was respect. It was empathy. It was humanity. "Grace likes you a lot," Nicole said, breaking the silence. "I like her a lot too," William replied. "She's special." "She is. And she needs good people around her. People who care. Thank you for being that person." "Thank you for letting her into my life," William said, and his voice was more emotional than he expected. Nicole smiled. "Grace has a way of walking into people's lives without asking permission. I think it's her gift." "I think so too," William agreed, smiling. Grace appeared at the living room door at that moment, wearing the new dress, the hoodie, the sneakers, the bows in her hair. She spun around, showing everything off, with a huge smile. "Look, Mom, look how pretty I am." Nicole turned and her face lit up. "You are beautiful, my love. Absolutely beautiful." Grace ran up to William, stopped in front of him, and made an exaggerated curtsy like a princess. "And you, what do you think?" William smiled, a genuine, wide smile, which he hadn't given in a long time. "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." Grace giggled, satisfied, and ran off again, going to play in the hallway, happy, light, free. William and Nicole stood there, watching, she working, he thinking. And slowly, something grew between them. Not romance, not passion, but something equally important. Respect, consideration, mutual understanding. Two lonely adults, each carrying their own burdens, finding a little relief in each other's presence. No demands, no expectations, just existing in the same space. And somehow, that was enough. For now, it was more than enough. 3 weeks passed since the day of the new dress. Grace now came every Saturday without fail. Nicole worked around the house, and Grace stayed in the office with William, drawing, talking, asking about everything. He had bought more colored pencils, a large box with 48 different colors. She loved them. That Saturday, Grace was sitting on the office floor, cross-legged, drawing in a new notebook. He was at his desk, trying to review a report but couldn't concentrate. She was humming softly as she drew, and the sound was comforting. "Can I ask you a question?" Grace said suddenly, without lifting her eyes from the drawing. "Of course," William replied, dropping his pen. "Why don't you go see Samuel?" The question hit William as it always did. Direct. Without warning. Painful. He took a deep breath. "It's complicated, Grace." "You always say that," she murmured, now looking at him. "But I don't understand. If you miss him so much, why don't you go?" William leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. Because I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid he won't want to see me. Afraid he's angry at me." "Afraid it's too late?" Grace tilted her head, thinking, "But you're his dad." "I am, but I haven't been a good dad, Grace." "Why?" William closed his eyes. The guilt was there, always there, throbbing. He had never spoken about this out loud, but with Grace it was different. "Because I spent my whole life focused on the company," he began slowly. "Working, building, making money, doing all this." He gestured around at the expensive furniture, the screens, the mansion, and somewhere along the way, without realizing it, I forgot about my family. I forgot about Samuel. I forgot about being a father. Grace was quiet, just listening. "I worked morning, noon, and night," William continued, his voice heavy. "Weekend, holiday, it didn't matter. I always had a meeting, always had a report, always had something more important. And Samuel, he kept waiting for me to come home, waiting for me to have time." "And you didn't have time," Grace said softly. "No, I didn't. I thought I was doing the right thing." "What?" "I thought working, making money, providing comfort for him was enough, but it wasn't." "He wanted you," Grace said. Simply, "Not the money. You." William felt his throat tighten. He nodded. "When I realized it, It was already too late, he continued. My wife had already left. She took Samuel with her, and I stayed here, alone, with all of this. And without anything that truly mattered. You lost them, Grace said. I did, William confirmed, and the word came out heavy. When I finally realized what I had done, I had already lost everything. Grace dropped the colored pencil. She stood up and walked toward William slowly. She stood in front of him, serious. But you can try again. I don't know if I can, Grace. I don't know if he will forgive me. You won't know if you don't try, she said, with that simple child logic. You have to go. You have to talk to him. What if he doesn't want to talk to me? What if he does? William was silent. He knew she was right, but the fear was still there, big, heavy, paralyzing. I'm afraid to see the disappointment in his eyes, William confessed, his voice trembling. Afraid to see that he grew up without me. Afraid to realize that he doesn't need me anymore. Everyone needs their dad, Grace said, placing her small hand on his knee. I don't have a dad. I never met mine. And you know how I feel. William shook his head. Missing him. I miss him a lot, even without knowing him. I wanted to have a dad, I really did. I see the other kids at school with their dads and I get sad because I don't have one. Her voice was so honest that it hurt to hear. And Samuel has you, Grace continued, squeezing his knee. He has a dad, he just needs you to show up, to show him that you care. William felt his throat close. He looked at Grace, at those huge eyes, at that girl who didn't have a father and yet understood so much. You are very wise for 6 years old, he said, his voice hoarse. I just know how I feel, she replied seriously. And I know if my dad showed up today, I would want to see him, even if he made mistakes. Even if he disappeared, I would want to meet him, because everyone deserves a second chance. William swallowed hard. Grace's words sank deep, cut through all his defenses, reached where they needed to reach. Then go see Samuel, Grace said firmly. Stop being afraid, go there, talk to him, apologize, show him you want to change. William looked at her, saw the determination on her small face, saw the sincerity, saw the truth he had avoided for so long. You're right, he said, finally. You are completely right. I know, Grace replied, and smiled. I always am. William laughed, a low but genuine laugh. When should I go? Now. Now. Now, she repeated, convinced. Before you change your mind. William took a deep breath. The fear was still there, big, heavy. But now it had company. It had hope. It had desire. It had a small but growing courage. What if everything goes wrong? What if it goes right? Grace countered. He nodded, slowly. She was right. Okay, he said, standing up from the chair. I'll go. Grace clapped her hands, excited. Right now? No, but soon. This week, I promise. Do you really promise? I promise. Grace held out her pinky finger. Pinky promise can't be broken. It's a rule. William smiled and linked his pinky with hers. Pinky promise, he said. Grace squeezed tightly, as if that were a sacred contract. Then she let go, satisfied, and went back to drawing, sitting on the floor again. As if she had solved the world's biggest problem. And maybe she had. William stood there, looking out the window. The garden outside was green, well kept, perfect, but empty. The fear was still there. It hadn't disappeared, but now it had company. It had hope. It had desire. It had courage. Grace had done something no one else could. She had broken down his last defenses. She had shown him the truth in such a simple, direct way that it was impossible to ignore. He needed to go. He needed to see Samuel. He needed to look into his son's eyes. He needed to apologize. He needed to try. Even with fear, even without guarantees, even knowing it could go wrong, he needed to try because Grace was right. He would never know if he didn't try. And for the first time in a long time, William felt that he was ready to face the fear, ready to face the rejection, ready to face whatever came, because he didn't want to live like this anymore, alone, drowning in regret, suffocated by guilt. He wanted to change, he wanted to fix things, he wanted to be a father again, and he was going to start now. He was going to start this week. He was going to keep the pinky promise, because a pinky promise can't be broken, never. William parked the car in front of the house and stayed there, stopped, his hands on the steering wheel. The house was simple, much smaller than the mansion, a two-story house in a quiet neighborhood, with a small front garden and a white fence that needed painting. It was the kind of place he never imagined his ex-wife living, but it was where she had started over, where Samuel lived now. He took a deep breath. His hands were shaking. His heart was beating too fast. Pinky promise. Grace was right. He had to do this. He had to try. William turned off the car, took the keys and got out. Each step toward the front door seemed to weigh a ton. He stopped at the gate, looked at the doorbell, and hesitated. What if it goes wrong? What if it goes right? He pressed the doorbell. The sound echoed inside. Footsteps. The door opened. Jennifer was there, his ex-wife. Brown hair tied in a ponytail, no makeup, wearing a simple shirt and jeans. She looked at him, and the expression on her face was surprise. Then it hardened. "William," she said, flatly. "Hi, Jennifer?" They stood there, looking at each other, in heavy silence. "What are you doing here?" she asked, crossing her arms. I came to see Samuel." Jennifer let out a breath, as if she had been expecting this. "You took your time." "I know. A long time." William looked down. "I know. I'm sorry." Jennifer looked at him, assessing. Then she shook her head, tiredly. "I don't know if he'll want to see you, William." The words hit him like a punch. "Why?" "Because he got tired of waiting for you," she said harshly, without pity. "He waited for you for months, called, sent messages, asked when you were going to visit, and you always had an excuse, always had work, always had a meeting, until he stopped asking, stopped waiting." William felt the guilt tighten in his chest like a giant hand. "I know I messed up. I know, but I want to fix it. Please, let me try." Jennifer was silent for a long moment. She studied his face, searching for sincerity, searching for something to indicate that he had really changed. "He's in his room," she said finally, opening the door. "At the end of the hall. But if you hurt him again, William, I swear you won't set foot in this house again." "I won't hurt him," he promised, his voice firm. "Never again." Jennifer stepped aside, letting him enter. William walked into the house. It was small, but cozy. Photos on the walls, toys scattered around, the smell of home-cooked food. It was a home. More of a home than his mansion had ever been. He walked down the hall. Each step was difficult. His legs trembled, his hands sweated, his breathing was shallow, caught in his chest. The hallway seemed endless, longer than it really was, as if he had been walking for hours. He reached the last door. It was slightly ajar. He saw a piece of the room. The bed. The shelf with books and action figures. The low light coming through the window. William stopped, put his hand on the door, took a deep breath. "You can do this. You have to do this." He pushed the door open slowly. Samuel was sitting on the floor, his back to the door, building something with blocks. He was wearing a blue t-shirt and shorts. His brown hair was a little longer than William remembered. William stood there, watching. The son he hadn't seen in so long. The son he lost. "Samuel," he said softly. The boy froze, dropped the blocks, turned his head slowly. Their eyes met. Samuel's eyes widened, his mouth opened slightly. "You here?" he said, his voice thin, disbelieving. William nodded, swallowing hard. "I came to see you." Samuel stood still, processing. He didn't move. He didn't smile. He just stared, as if he couldn't believe this was happening. "Why?" The question came out charged, It wasn't curiosity. It was hurt. William entered the room slowly, carefully. He stopped a few steps away. "Because I missed you. A lot." Samuel looked away, returning to the blocks. "You always have work." I know, but not this time." Samuel didn't reply. William moved closer. He crouched down in front of his son, getting to his height. "Samuel, look at me. Please." The boy hesitated, but turned his face. His eyes were shining, teary. "I came for you," William said, firmly. "I set aside the whole weekend just for you. No work, no meetings, no phone, just you and me." Samuel looked at him, suspicious. "Really? Really? I promise." The boy was quiet, absorbing it. Then he lowered his head. "I thought you forgot about me," he said, softly, his voice breaking. The words shattered William inside. He couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't hold it in. He dropped from the crouch and knelt on the floor in front of his son, looking directly into his eyes. "Forgive me, Samuel," he said, and his voice was choked. "Forgive me for everything. I was an absent father. I worked too much. I put everything before you, and I was wrong, very wrong." Samuel looked at him, eyes wide, surprised. "But I never forgot you," William continued, holding his son's small hands. "Never, not for a single day. You were always here." He put his hand on his chest. "Always. And I'm so sorry it took me so long to realize what I was losing." Tears started to run down Samuel's face. "I waited for you," he said, sobbing. "I kept waiting for you to pick me up at school, but you never came. I know, and I'm so sorry, truly sorry. I thought you didn't like me anymore." "No," William said, squeezing his hands. "No, I always liked you. I always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it. I didn't know how to be a dad, but I want to learn. I want to try again." Samuel sniffled, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "I promise," William said, looking deep into his son's eyes. "I promise I will never be absent again. You come first now. Always. Before work. Before everything. You are the most important thing in my life, and I'm going to prove it to you. Every day, if you give me a chance." Samuel looked at him, processing every word. The tears were still streaming, but he didn't look away. "Do you really promise?" "I promise. Pinky promise." William held out his pinky finger. Samuel looked at his father's hand. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he linked his small pinky with his father's. "Pinky promise can't be broken," Samuel said, his voice trembling. "I will never break it," William guaranteed. And then Samuel dropped the blocks, stood up and ran straight into his father's arms. William caught him, hugging him tightly, holding him as if he would never let go. Samuel buried his face in his shoulder and cried softly, sobbing, releasing months of hurt, longing, absence. William closed his eyes, holding his son tight against his chest, and he also cried, silent tears running down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered in his son's ear. "I'm sorry for everything." "I missed you so much, Daddy," Samuel said, still sobbing. "Me too, son, me too." They stayed like that for a long time, hugging, crying, healing. After a while, Samuel pulled back a little, wiping his red eyes. "Do you want to play with me?" William smiled, a genuine, wide smile. "I do. What do you want to do? Can I choose?" "You can choose anything," Samuel thought, then pointed to the blocks. "Should we build a giant castle?" "We should." They sat on the floor. William, in his suit and dress shoes, sitting on the rug, building blocks with his son, something he had never done before, something simple, something he had always ignored. But now it was the most important thing in the world. Samuel explained how each piece fit together. William listened, attentive, asking questions, participating. They built towers, walls, bridges, laughing when something fell over, starting again, trying again. "Grace talked about you," Samuel said suddenly, placing a piece on top of the tower. William stopped, surprised. She did? She did. She said you're nice, that you give her chocolate, and that you're her friend. William smiled. She is my friend too. A very special friend. I really like Grace, Samuel said, smiling. She used to share her snack with me. And she's funny. She talks about you a lot too, William said. She said you were her best friend at school, that she misses you. Samuel smiled wider. Really? Really? When I go back to school, I'm going to look for her. I'm sure she'll love that. They continued playing, talking, laughing, as if the months of distance had never existed, as if everything was going back to where it should be, and maybe it was slowly, one block at a time, one promise at a time, one hug at a time. William looked at his son, at the smile on his face, at his sparkling eyes, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, happiness, hope. He hadn't fixed everything yet. He knew that. There was still a long road ahead, but he had taken the first step, the most difficult step, and now he wouldn't stop anymore, never again. William returned home on Sunday night with a lighter heart than he had in months. The weekend with Samuel had been perfect. They played, talked, went to the park, ate pizza, watched movies, simple things, things he had never done before, and every moment was precious. Samuel had laughed, had hugged, had called him Dad again, and William had promised to return the following week, and the week after, and every week after that. Pinky promise. He couldn't wait for the following Saturday. He wanted to tell Grace everything. He wanted to thank her. He wanted to tell her she was right, that it worked out. When Saturday finally arrived, William was anxious. He woke up early. He waited in the living room, watching the clock, 9 o'clock. The doorbell rang. He practically ran to the door, opened it with a smile on his face. But the smile instantly vanished. Nicole was there, as always. But something was different. She looked more tired than usual, red eyes, pale face. And Grace wasn't excited. She was quiet, serious, clutching her pink backpack, looking at the floor. "Good morning," William said, worried. "Is everything okay?" Nicole forced a smile. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks." "Yes, it is. You can come in, Grace." Grace entered slowly, still clutching her backpack to her chest without looking up. William frowned. Something was wrong. Nicole went straight to the kitchen, but William called Grace before she disappeared. "Grace, come here." She stopped, hesitated, then walked over to him, slowly, dragging her feet. William crouched down, getting to her height. "What happened?" Grace didn't answer. She just clutched her backpack tighter. "Grace, look at me," he said, gently. She looked up, and William saw. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "What is it? Why are you sad?" Grace bit her lip, trying to hold it back, but her voice came out trembling. "School got too expensive." William froze. "What?" "The tuition. Mommy can't afford to pay anymore." William's heart clenched. "What do you mean?" Grace lowered her head again, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm going to have to leave school." William felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. He looked toward the kitchen, where Nicole was, and stood up. "Stay here for a second," he said to Grace. He went to the kitchen. Nicole was standing at the sink, her back to him, her hands resting on the edge, her head bowed. "Nicole," he called, softly. She turned around, quickly wiping her face with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry. I'll get back to work now." "Forget about work. Explain what's going on." Nicole took a deep breath, trying to control herself. "The school increased the tuition. A general adjustment. 40% increase." William's eyes widened. 40%? "Yes. They sent the letter last week. They said it's because of renovations. New teachers. I don't know. But the amount, I can't pay it. Even with the employee discount, it's unaffordable. Is there no way to negotiate?" Pay in installments." Nicole shook her head, tears returning. I tried everything, but they were clear. Either I pay the new amount or Grace leaves, and I can't afford to pay. I already work in 4 different houses. I do side jobs on weekends, and it's still not enough." Her voice broke at the end. William felt anger rise. Anger at the school. Anger at the situation. Anger at a system that crushed people like Nicole. "When does she have to leave?" "The end of the month. If I don't pay the next tuition, she's out." William was silent, processing. Then he nodded, determined. "She's not leaving." Nicole looked at him, confused. "What?" "Grace is not leaving school," he repeated, firmly. "Mr. Brooks, I can't accept you." "I'm not asking for permission," William said, looking her directly in the eyes. "I'm going to pay for it." Nicole shook her head, desperate. "No, I can't accept that. It's too much already. The clothes, what you've already done." "Nicole, listen." He held her shoulders gently but firmly. "Grace changed my life. She gave me my son back. She made me wake up. She made me a better person. Let me do this for her, please, for what she did for me." Nicole started to cry, covering her face with her hands. "I didn't want this. I didn't want to depend on anyone." "You are not depending," William said softly. "You are accepting help. And there is nothing wrong with that." She sniffled, trying to compose herself. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me, just let me do this." Nicole nodded, still crying, unable to speak. William returned to the living room. Grace was sitting on the sofa, clutching her backpack, her face hidden. He went up to her, sat down beside her, put his hand on her shoulder. "Grace, look at me." She lifted her face, her eyes red and wet. William held her small hands, firmly, securely. "You will never stop studying. I guarantee it." Grace blinked, confused. "How?" "I will pay for school for you, until the end, until you finish, until you grow up and become whatever you want to be." Her eyes widened. "Seriously? Seriously?" "Pinky, promise." He held out his pinky finger. Grace looked at it, hesitant, and then linked hers with his. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this?" William smiled, squeezing her hand. "Because you gave me my son back, Grace. You made me see what I was losing. You made me change. I am eternally grateful. And this is the least I can do." Grace dropped her backpack and threw herself into his arms, hugging him tightly. She cried on his shoulder, but this time it wasn't sadness. It was relief. It was gratitude. It was happiness. "Thank you," she whispered, sobbing. "Thank you so much." William held her tight against his chest, closing his eyes. "So you're welcome, little one. You're welcome." Nicole appeared in the living room doorway, watching the scene. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling, a smile of relief, of gratitude, of hope. William looked at her over Grace's head, and the two exchanged a look, a silent understanding. It wasn't words, but it was everything. Grace pulled away, wiping her face, and then smiled, a huge, genuine smile. "Now I can tell Samuel that I'm staying in school." William laughed. "You can, and he will be very happy." Grace jumped off the sofa, excited again, and ran off into the hallway, back to normal, back to being a child. William sat there, watching her go, and felt his chest warm. He had done the right thing, again, and he would keep doing it, always. 2 weeks later, William did something he hadn't done in a long time. He called Jennifer and asked if Samuel could spend the entire Saturday with him. The whole day, at the mansion. She hesitated for a second, but then accepted. She said Samuel had talked non-stop about his dad all week. That he was happy, different, lighter. On Saturday morning, William went to pick up Samuel personally. He drove to the house, rang the doorbell, and when the boy opened the door, his face lit up like a light bulb. "Daddy." "Hi, champ." "Ready to spend the day with me?" "Ready as I'll ever be." Samuel grabbed his small backpack, gave his mum a quick kiss, and ran out to the car, excited, jumping. William looked at Jennifer at the door. She smiled, a small but true, genuine smile. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For trying. For showing up. For not giving up. For being the father he always wanted." William nodded, not knowing exactly what to say. Words didn't come easily. "I'll keep trying. Always. I promise that." "I know," she replied, and her tone was sincere. "And he knows it too." That makes all the difference. When they arrived at the mansion, William opened the main door and Samuel ran inside, excited, spinning, looking at everything as if it were the first time. "Wow, it's huge in here." "It is big," William said, laughing softly. Samuel ran through the enormous living room, down the marble hallway, exploring every corner, touching the furniture, looking at the paintings. William followed him, watching, his heart warming. It was good to have life in that house again. It was good to have noise, laughter, movement. It was good to have joy filling the empty rooms. The doorbell rang. William looked at the clock. 9 o'clock. Nicole and Grace. "I have someone I want you to meet," William said to Samuel mysteriously. "Who?" "You already know this person. You just don't know she's here." Samuel frowned, confused. William smiled and went to the door, opening it slowly. Nicole was there, with the battered canvas bag over her shoulder, her face tired but peaceful, and beside her, Grace, with the pink backpack on her back and a huge smile lighting up her whole face. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks," Nicole said. "Good morning. Come in. Today is a special day." Grace entered, curious, excited, but stopped suddenly when she saw the boy standing in the middle of the room. Her eyes widened. She froze. Samuel's eyes widened too. His mouth dropped open. And then, at the same time, the two of them shouted loudly, "Grace! Samuel!" Samuel darted forward. Grace darted forward. And the two met in the middle of the room, hugging tightly, jumping, laughing, shouting with pure happiness. "You're back! You really came back!" Grace screamed, squeezing him tight. "I'm here! I came to visit my dad!" Samuel replied, excited, almost breathless. "Your dad is William." "He is, and he's really nice now." "Really, really nice." Grace pulled away, holding his shoulders. "Serious. I told you it would work out. I told you." William was standing near the door, watching, feeling his chest tighten with emotion. He looked at Nicole. Her eyes were sparkling, teary, but she was smiling. They exchanged a look, a silent understanding, a perfect moment. This was exactly how it should be. The morning passed quickly, light, full of life. Samuel and Grace sat on the living room floor with colored pencils, paper, markers, crayons. They drew together, helping each other, trading colors, laughing non-stop, talking about everything and nothing. "Look, I made you with a superhero cape," Grace said, proudly showing the drawing. "That's so cool. And I made you with a princess crown and a blue dress. It's the dress William gave me." "Really? It looks pretty on you." They laughed, satisfied, and continued drawing. Then, William brought out Play-Doh he had bought especially for this day. He bought several colors, new containers, plastic tools. The children threw themselves onto the floor, molding, creating, inventing. "Look, I made a dog," Grace showed proudly. "And I made a giant dinosaur that eats everything." Samuel held up the green Play-Doh with white teeth. "My dog is friends with your dinosaur. Then they won't fight." William watched from a distance, sitting on the sofa, just smiling, soaking up every second. Nicole appeared with a glass of water, wiping her hands on the apron she wore for work. "They are perfect together," she said softly, sitting beside him. "They are," William agreed, without taking his eyes off the children. "It's as if they were real siblings." Nicole smiled, her gaze gentle. "I think they are, in their own way, in the way that matters." They sat there, side by side, watching the children play. create imaginary worlds, laugh loudly. The atmosphere was different, lighter, warmer, fuller, more alive. The mansion finally felt like a home. After the simple lunch Nicole prepared, sandwiches, juice, fruit, William took the children to the enormous garden. "Shall we play outside?" "Yes!" the two shouted at the same time, darting out the door. They ran through the vast garden, shouting, laughing non-stop. William ran after them, pretending to be a giant monster about to catch them both. "Run! The monster is coming!" he roared, exaggerating. Samuel and Grace screamed, laughing, running between the trees, hiding behind the bushes, trying to escape. "I got you!" William grabbed Samuel, lifting him into the air and spinning him around. "No!" "Let me go!" Samuel screamed, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Grace ran and jumped onto William's back, clinging to his neck. "I saved you, Samuel. I'm super strong." The three of them fell onto the soft grass, rolling, laughing, breathless, completely happy. The sun was shining, the sky was blue, everything was perfect. Nicole watched from the kitchen window, drying her hands on a towel. Her chest felt light. For the first time in a very, very long time, she didn't feel the crushing weight of loneliness. She didn't feel the deep exhaustion. She only felt peace, gratitude, hope. In the late afternoon, when the sun began to set, the children were exhausted. They sat on the large sofa, one on each side of William, leaning against him, breathing deeply. "I really like today," Grace said, yawning, rubbing her eyes. "Me too," Samuel agreed, his voice tired. "It was the best day of my life." "Can we do it again?" Grace asked, lifting her head and looking at William with those huge eyes. "Of course you can. Every week if you want." "I do!" the two shouted together, excited again. William laughed, hugging them both tight against him. "Then it's a deal. Every Saturday. Me, you, and you. The three of us together." Samuel turned to Grace. "Seriously, can we be best friends forever?" Grace nodded, equally serious. "Forever." "Pinky promise?" They linked their pinky fingers and squeezing tightly, sealing the pact. William watched, his chest tightening with emotion. This was real. This was family, not by blood, but by choice, by love, by presence. When Nicole finished her work for the day, she came to get Grace. The children said goodbye with a long, lingering, tight hug. "See you next week," Grace said, holding Samuel's hands. "See you. Don't be late," Samuel replied, smiling. Nicole picked up her bag, adjusted Grace's backpack, but before leaving, she stopped and looked at William. "Thank you for today, for everything you've been doing, for everything, really." William shook his head, sincere. "I should be thanking you. You both brought life to this house. You brought life to me. I was dead inside here and I didn't even realize it." Nicole smiled, her eyes glistening. "I guess we helped each other. Then, all of us. I guess so." They stood there, looking at each other, understanding everything without needing to say anything more. It wasn't romance, it wasn't attraction. It was something else, deeper. It was true friendship. It was mutual respect. It was chosen family. It was home. Grace pulled her mother's hand tiredly. "Let's go, Mom. I'm sleepy." Nicole chuckled softly. "Let's go, my love." They left. William closed the door slowly and went back to the living room. Samuel was lying on the sofa, almost asleep, his eyes closing on their own. "Daddy." "Yes, son. I love you." William felt his throat tighten hard. He moved closer, sat down beside his son, and gently ran his hand through his messy hair, affectionately. "I love you too, Samuel. Very much, more than anything." Samuel smiled, his eyes finally closing completely. William sat there watching his son sleep. Peaceful, happy, safe, loved. And for the first time in a very, very long time, the mansion didn't feel empty. It didn't feel cold. It didn't feel lonely. It felt like a home. There was laughter echoing through the walls. There was the smell of cake. There were colorful drawings on the refrigerator. There was life pulsing in every room, and William knew with absolute certainty that he would never let this slip away again. Never again. Pinky promise. The following months brought a routine William never imagined having. Every Saturday, Samuel spent the entire day with him. Sometimes he slept over. Sometimes he stayed the whole weekend, and William loved every second. They did homework together at the kitchen table. William helped with math, even if he made mistakes sometimes, and they both laughed. They went to the park, played ball, rode bikes. They played on the living room floor, assembling puzzles, building with blocks, inventing stories. William learned to cook simple things: pancakes, pasta, elaborate sandwiches that Samuel loved. And every time they were together, the phone was turned off, put away, forgotten. Nothing was more important than that, than being present, than being a father. One Saturday afternoon, Jennifer called. "William, Samuel's school is having a performance on Friday, a theater piece. He's very excited." William felt his heart quicken. "What time?" 3 in the afternoon. "I'll be there." "Are you sure? I know you work and—" "I'll be there," he repeated firmly. "I promise." And he kept it. On Friday, William left the company at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He got in the car and drove straight to the school. He arrived early. He entered the small auditorium, watching the seats fill with fathers, mothers, grandparents. He chose the first row, right in the middle. He sat down, nervous, adjusting his tie, holding his phone ready to record everything. His heart was beating fast. His hands were sweaty. He had never done this before. He had never been to his son's performance. And the guilt still hurt. But now he was here. Finally. The lights dimmed. The curtain opened. The children came onto the stage, dressed in simple costumes. Samuel was in the middle, wearing a blue cape and a golden paper crown. He looked at the audience, searching, his eyes scanning the seats, and then he found him. He found his dad. Samuel's face completely lit up. He smiled widely and gave a discreet wave. William waved back, his chest bursting with pride. The performance began. The children spoke their lines, sang, danced. Samuel spoke his words with a firm, clear voice. William recorded everything, smiling, silently cheering with every line his son spoke. When it ended, he gave a standing ovation, louder than everyone else. After the show, the children came out through the aisles, looking for their parents. Samuel saw William and darted forward. He ran and leaped straight into his arms. "You came! You really came!" William caught him, hugging him tightly. "I wouldn't have missed it for anything in the world." Samuel pulled back, his eyes sparkling. "Did you like it?" "Did I like it? I loved it. You were incredible." Samuel smiled shyly, then reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you." William took it, opening it slowly. It was a drawing. 2 stick figures holding hands, one tall and one small. The tall one had a red cape carefully drawn on it, and underneath, written in large, colorful letters, "You are my hero." William felt his throat close. His eyes burned. He hugged his son again, squeezing him, hiding the tears that threatened to fall. "Thank you, son. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for coming back, Daddy." That night, William returned home with the drawing in his hand. He walked in and found Nicole and Grace in the kitchen. They had baked a cake. The house smelled of cinnamon and chocolate. Grace ran up to him. "So, how was it?" "It was perfect," William said, smiling. He showed her the drawing. Grace read it out loud, emotionally. "You are my hero. How lovely." William taped the drawing to the refrigerator, next to the others that Grace had made. The refrigerator was full now, full of colors, of life, of love. They ate dinner together. They laughed, told stories, and when Grace and Nicole left, William stayed there, alone in the kitchen, looking at the refrigerator full of drawings. The house was no longer silent. There was laughter echoing. There was the smell of cake. There was life. In the following months, something else happened. William created a scholarship program at Grace's school. Inspired by her, he decided to help other children who needed it. The program grew. Dozens of children were able to continue their education. Nicole received an offer to work in the school administration, a stable position, dignified, with a fair salary. She accepted, crying tears of relief. And William rebuilt his family, not the one he lost, but a new one, a chosen one. Samuel, Grace, Nicole, all together, all present. He learned that family isn't just blood. It's presence, it's love, it's choice, and all of it. All of it started with a blonde girl with light eyes who whispered he used to share his lunch with me. A simple sentence that changed everything, that saved a lost man, that rebuilt an absent father, that brought life to an empty house. And William knew with absolute certainty that he would never be the same again. Because Grace had given him the greatest gift of all. She had given him a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. Never again.